Do as I say, not as I do. This is a motto that is as old as perhaps civilization. You may have heard it from your father or mother or grandparents, but now you're hearing it from all of the people who wish to rule over you, the leaders in this country, some of the leaders in this country, and they think they're better than you. And they think you're too dumb to notice that they don't even follow their own rules. They don't even try to follow their own rules at this point. I'm Matt Odegaard. Welcome to Church Public. All right, welcome back to Church Public. Thank you so much for joining me here today. I certainly appreciate it quite a bit. If you haven't already, go and check out Church Public on churchpublic.com. You can check it out at Apple Music and Spotify and Google and all the places. If you are only listening to this on audio, this particular episode, in fact, you may want to watch some of the videos. I got a few videos to show you, some pictures that will truly speak 1,000 words to you, and it may be easier to understand from there. Either way, I think you will enjoy our time together. I certainly hope so. If you do, feel free to like this and share it and send it to all your friends. We are at a point where even these simple acts of passing on the truth, the good information, can help us grow in this culture and grow those values, ideals, and yes, faith in things that are worth more, like the biblical faith that we consistently talk about here. So do please engage in that. Share it if you can, if you want to. I appreciate it because this is not about me. This is about getting the truth out there. And the more of us that say true things, the more we can truly affect this culture. And that is really the most important thing. So I do want to talk about some of the culture, and as I started in the intro, do as I say, not as I do, has apparently become the mantra of the ruling class. It is that they will give you all of the rules and yet not follow them themselves. So I want to look at some of that, and I think it's important for us to look at some of that and for us to see what is going on in this crazy world. So we're going to do that in a moment. But before we get to that, I do want to show you this because I always try to be on the lookout for things that illustrate how either the powers of this world, the devil, or just bad people are attacking the church. And I think it's important for us to look at that. I think it's important for us to comprehend that there is a war on the church and there is a war on Christians in this world. And I have shown you Canada, I've shown you England, Australia, I've shown you some other places in some of the past episodes. If you missed those, go back to churchpublic.com and check out some of those. But this one comes right here from America. This is over in Oregon. I've got a picture here. If you cannot see, this is a picture of a worship gathering, and it's a picture of some Antifa members shooting some kind of who knows, tear gas, bear spray, something at some of the worshipers there and some of the security guards for the worship event. There is a guy named Sean Foyt, I believe is how you pronounce his last name. I apologize if I'm pronouncing that wrong. He has been going around doing worship events all across America for a while now, many months and even longer, and just bringing the good news, bringing the gospel, bringing a worship experience. And people don't want to have this. So he showed up in Portland along with a guy that we've talked about before from Canada, Artur Pawlowski, who was arrested in Canada for holding church services in defiance of some of the lockdown measures where the Canadian government, the local provincial government, said you cannot have church services. And he said, we're going to have church services because it's important to allow people to connect with each other and with God. Those are, again, quick summary. Jesus said, love God, love others. Two things. That's it. That's the two things. And everything else is covered by those two things. So this pastor said, I literally came, we can go back and watch some of those episodes again, but I literally came from, I think he said, a communist place, or at least an oppressive regime. I apologize, I didn't pull that up in the notes. But he moved to Canada to avoid the kind of oppression that he was getting in Canada. At any rate, that was a side story that you can go back and listen to if you want to on Church Public. But in this instance, he was brought out as a speaker for one of these worship gatherings, and a bunch of, as you can see in this picture, Antifa members came, and there were some other pictures. I chose not to pull them up. You can look at some of the other stories at news sites online, but they were grabbing audio equipment and ripping it out and throwing it. And there were actually, what happened after the event is many of the people that attended, Christians that attended the event, were trying to walk away and walk home and get away. And they were actually beaten as they were walking away. I'm telling you, this stuff is going on. And people hate God and the church and the people who follow God and seek after him. So this is just really important to keep a note on that. I hadn't planned on mentioning that one today, but I saw it pop up in a couple of the feeds, and I thought we need to talk about this, and we need to have awareness of this because I haven't seen it in any of the other mainstream news feeds, and we probably won't. So at any rate, important to keep an eye on. But today we are talking about do as I say, not as I do. And one of the things that we've got to look at here is just these crazy restrictions that are going on all over the country in terms of this virus. And again, I'm not pretending that there's no virus. I'm not saying that the virus hasn't caused people's death. The numbers are questionable in some places, but what we have to look at is what are our people, leaders, telling us about this, and then what are they doing? And this matters because if you believe this is so serious, as some people are saying, that we literally are all going to die from this, then you should act a certain way. This is just common sense, right? If this is the 1918 flu, if this is the bubonic plague, if this is the Black Death, then you're going to act a certain way. I flew on an airplane a few weeks ago. And of course, on the airplane, you are required to mask for the entire time and yelled at if you don't. And we've all seen the videos now, people getting kicked off airplanes for doing things the wrong way. 2-year-olds getting kicked off airplanes because they're not wearing the mask right. And if anybody has a 2-year-old, you know, 2-year-olds. Anyway, we don't even have to go down that road. But there's that moment when they say, here's your drink, here's your snack pack or whatever they give you. If this were so incredibly dangerous and deadly, my question is, would you be allowed to have the snack pack? Wouldn't you just say, we're not giving you this delicious snack because if you take your mask off, we're all going to die. And yet, at some point, you just take your mask off and eat your snack. And they say, of course, you know, in between bites and do this thing and whatever. But again, the issues just don't add up. The consequence and the actions don't seem to line up with everybody believing what they say they believe. So we come to former President Obama, who had a party. He had a party scheduled for hundreds and hundreds, like 600 or 700 people. I think it was like 500 guests and 200 staff or something like that. And he had this party lined up, and then he got a bunch of pushback online. I don't know if you saw some of that because, hey, we're in the middle of a pandemic and you can't have a party for people. I mean, the regular people like us have been told over the course of the year, you can't go to church, you can't have a funeral for your dead loved ones, you can't visit retirement homes, you can't have a wedding. I have friends and family members who were told they can't have a wedding because it's too dangerous to have a wedding. And yet you have, and we've shown these over the past course of time, some of these officials just saying, well, but I can have a birthday party. So President Obama, 60th birthday, very exciting. He's celebrating his 60th birthday, and he said he's going to, it'll just be a few, just people, just a few family and friends, no big deal. And yet, you know, here's a picture. If you're not seeing, this is former President Obama jamming on the dance floor. It's a little bit blurry if you can't see that. I'll give you another one. Here's just a picture of him jamming on the dance floor. You can see no mask, just jamming on the dance floor. Everybody around him in the background, no mask, just jamming on the dance floor. Here was a video that somebody took. Oh, by the way, it was supposed to be a social media blackout because, of course, you can't show what's going on in these situations. So here's some jam session. That's a little bit loud. I'm going to turn that down for you. And it doesn't really matter. It's just some crazy jam music. And you see Obama dancing, some other people dancing. And then you've got him hugging some people on the dance floor. And let me just say, I don't care. Have a birthday party. You should have a birthday party. Everybody should have a birthday party. Let's party. Why not party? I love the idea of party. And yet, at this moment, There were mask mandates all over the place. The CDC has said even if you're vaccinated, this according to the CDC, don't take me off the interwebs. According to the CDC, even if you're vaccinated, you're supposed to wear your mask indoors. This is indoors. They're having a sweet jam party and dancing on the dance floor. There's a bunch of videos that got through the social media blackout. I believe they've been deleted from the internets, but of course, as you know, nothing ever gets deleted from the internets. So, they're doing this thing, and there were hundreds and hundreds of people there. I was going to grab the picture of the tent next to his $12 or $20 million home, whatever it is. I didn't grab that. You can look it up online. It is an enormous tent where a ton of people were and dancing and maskless. And if you can say, hey, well, they're all vaccinated and they're all safe. In what world is that true? In what world is everyone vaccinated safe? Because according to the CDC, not me, the CDC now says that even if you're vaccinated, you can spread this virus. So they're not wearing masks inside. They're not following their own rules. The point here is they think they're better than you, and that apparently you won't notice. So CNN and some contributors, I believe this contributor is from the New York Times, but this happened on CNN. And CNN, this contributor, gives us the reason why Obama and others are able to do this, and you, normal people, are not. Let's listen to what they have to say.
Other people said, this is really being overblown. They're following all the safety precautions. People are going to sporting events that are bigger than this. This is going to be safe. This is a sophisticated, vaccinated crowd, and this is just about optics. It's not about safety.
So did you hear that part? If you weren't watching, again, there's just a CNN contributor, I believe, from the New York Times, but it doesn't really matter because it's all the same. It's all the same corporation at this point, right? It's all the same talking points, all the same people saying all the same things. And so I put up here on the screen, sophisticated, vaccinated crowd. There's the difference. That is the medical, scientific reason. This is science, people. This is the scientific reason that people like former President Obama can have a 60th birthday party with hundreds of maskless guests indoors and dance the night away, and you cannot. The reason is they are sophisticated. They're sophisticated. They're different than you. You are just a normal person. You normal people can't quite understand. This is the thing, right? I just want to explain this to you, right? Explain this to me like I'm 5. You are not sophisticated. You are just normal. Normal people can't understand that when you're sophisticated, when you're vaccinated and in this crowd, it doesn't matter if you're in a crowd because you are then above whatever this virus can get. Virus can't get you. Nothing can get you. Nothing can touch you. You are now sophisticated. Do you see where this is? Do you see where this is going? Do you see what is happening here? Are you understanding this picture? This is a new feudal class of lords and ladies who get to live above us serfs, the plebeians, the poor strewn about the countryside, who just... Anyway, I was going to say some things there that I'm not going to say. I'm filtering. I'm self-filtering. I apologize. Anyway, they're up there in their high castles saying, if you were sophisticated, you would understand, but you're not sophisticated. You can't understand. You can't understand the way we are. We are different than you. We are sophisticated. And you have even the news reporters pointing this out to those that can't quite comprehend. It seems like you're saying the rules in one situation and yet not following the rules in another situation. So we have other things happening in terms of rules. This is Chicago Mayor Lori Lightfoot and the crowd at Lollapalooza. Now, if you aren't familiar, Lollapalooza is a ginormous musical festival that I believe was canceled the last year because of all the virus things, right? But now, this year was allowed to happen. This is a picture. If you can't see this picture, this is more people than the eye can count. I mean, there are a lot of people in this picture in Chicago. They say it was up to 100,000. I don't know. But again, of course, these were all vaccinated, sophisticated people. Who knows, right? At any rate, this was a huge music festival. Even the mayor herself, if you're not seeing this picture, she was there to dedicate, let me see if I can find out. It was a certain band. I had it here, but it doesn't really matter. Yes, she introduced the Black Pumas on stage and thanked everyone for coming to Chicago. Wonderful, right? Thank you, Mayor, for welcoming us to Chicago. And yet, shortly after that, mask mandate, capped off, can't go outside without a mask, can't go inside without a mask, can't do all these things. And in other, this is just another example. They say, well, you know, I really wanted to go to this concert, so I'm going to keep this concert open. And just, you know, you can deal with it later, and we'll just shut everything down after the concert, because the concert's not bad. The concert's not going to be a bad thing. Like, it's just, this is the music concert that we need to go to, because this is the great music concert. But the problem is, well, what happens if you're on a motorcycle? See, motorcycles are dangerous. No. They're not dangerous because you might crash and get in a motorcycle crash, which happens all the time. Again, I was in auto insurance at one point, and I know that motorcycle. I'm gonna be open and honest with you here. I would love to be a motorcycle rider. I would love to be a motorcycle jumper. The first time I was on a motorcycle, I jumped it accidentally because it was so fun, and I would love to be a motorcycle rider constantly. But I know that inside of me is this thing that always wants to go faster and higher. And unfortunately, that and motorcycle riding and every day is not a great thing. So I have chosen to push down on those feelings of launching off of objects and jumping into the air and going as fast as I can. And I'm not going to be a motorcycle rider, because I know I can't handle it, because I will want to go really fast, and then I'll get tickets and I'll probably crash and I'll die, and I don't want to do those things, right? But that's not the reason motorcycles are dangerous in this case. The reason motorcycles are dangerous in this case that we're going to look at in another state is COVID super spreader event. So, of course, we're talking about the Sturgis rally. So the Sturgis rally, which happened in the Midwest. So we're not on the coast anymore. And again, the coasts are special. Coasts are special. Coasts are different. Midwest, different kind of people, right? That's what we're told. Different kind of people live in the Midwest. I happen to live in the middle at the moment. Just saying. But different kind of people live in the middle, and you just can't trust them. You can't trust them to be safe, unfortunately. And so this is some news reporters talking about how dangerous. This is actually Dr. Fauci himself talking about how dangerous it is to ride a motorcycle into the eye of the virus hurricane.
Well, I'm very concerned, Chuck, that we're going to see another surge related to that rally. I mean, to me, it's understandable that people want to do the kinds of things they want to do. They want their freedom to do that. But there comes a time when you're dealing with a public health crisis that could involve you, your family, and everyone else, that something supersedes that need to do exactly what you want.
That's right? You want to do whatever you want to do, but you can't. You can't do whatever you want to do. As reported, there were around 700,000 people who went to this Sturgis event this year on motorcycles, and they had rock concerts very similar to the Lollapalooza, and they had parties very similar to the President Obama's party. They had all kinds of adventures over there in Sturgis. With around 700,000 people. And of course, people have been pointing back to last year, which Sturgis did happen in the middle of this pandemic. Around 500,000 people, a little bit less, still a lot of people. And as far as every report I could find, it actually ended up not being a super spreader event. And there was, as far as I could find, and you can send me messages if you find something, but it didn't look like anybody was reported to have died because of exposure to riding your motorcycle outdoors across the country and in and through towns. And yet we're told that because this event has nothing to do with this ruling class of people, we can't do that. That is a dangerous thing. As Dr. Fauci himself said, there are things you want to do, but you got to decide, like, oh, maybe I shouldn't do those things that I want to do for the sake of everybody else. And here's the deal. This is where we get into Christian worldview. That is a Christian worldview perspective. It is a Christian thing to say, I don't do the things I want to do because I want the best for you. That is 100% true. That is a statement like Jesus would say. He would say, you have to put other people first. You have to lay down your own life. These are Christian values. The problem is, and while those are true, and you still have to, I want to say two things. And they're going to sound maybe contradictory, but they are the same thing. want to put other people first. You want to do what's best for other people. That's an important thing. You have to evaluate that as an individual, as a follower, as a believer in Christ, and decide how you are going to live your life. When you see government officials, ex-government officials, leaders in the country, celebrities, I mean, as we mentioned, in Obama's party, the people that were there, they weren't just people like you and me. They weren't his neighbors. They were celebrities. Every single one of these hundreds of people was a high-level celebrity that was handpicked, specially invited to this special party for people that are above you and me. So for you and me, yes, and believers, yes, we want to choose the other person and we want to put the other person first. It's very important that we put the other person first. However, when you have your leaders mandating that you follow certain rules because they are the most important rules because they're going to keep people alive, and then they don't follow them, it's very hard to assign credibility to that and say, if this is such a big deal, why are you not following the instructions? Unless you know that it's not as big a deal as we think it is, as some people are saying that it is. I'm not saying that there aren't situations where you want to be careful. I'm not saying that you should go out sick. Of course not. But this has been common sense for all of our lives. If you're sick, if you have the flu, if you have a fever, of course don't go infect other people. Everyone has known this for probably all of humanity. I mean, that is a fairly simple concept. You don't want to infect other people and you don't want to endanger other people. But when you are healthy, when you are normal, we knew up until 5 seconds ago, last year, that you live life and that freedom is more important than safety. And that's a hard concept for us right now because of that ideal that we want to be empathetic, we want to be compassionate, we want to put other people first. And so they trick us by saying, you just need to put other people first and not do the things you want to do. But when I go and do the things that I want to do, don't worry about that because I am sophisticated and I know better. And I just want to give you one more on this. And this is our friend Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, who was doing a sweet photo op. And I'm just going to play a little bit of this clip for you. And this is, if you can't see, this is AOC herself sitting in the middle of this pack of people. They're getting ready for this photo op. It's on the stairs. They're getting ready. I think it was a protest of either one of the voting bills or I don't remember. It doesn't even matter. I don't care. But they're sitting there, a bunch of people, dozens of people probably sitting on these stairs. And if you weren't watching just now, you didn't see that at the beginning of this clip, she's just sitting there with everybody else, smiling, enjoying her time. No one around her, maybe one other person around her has a mask. Then she puts her mask on. Again, still sitting in the middle of everybody. And this other guy comes in, has a mask on, and reports said that before this photo op, he didn't have it on. And then in about 5 seconds right here, you see he pulls his mask down, and he's just sitting there with the mask down on his chin, looking a bit ridiculous, but a mask on his chin, and AOC is still sitting in the back. They did their picture. It's all exciting. The shot here says 1 minute later, once again, sitting in the middle of the people, smiling, laughing, no mask, wonderful, just enjoying her time together. So my point here is, again, these people don't want you to notice that a lot of this is theater. I'm not saying never wear a mask. I'm not saying that masks don't even do something. I don't want to get kicked off all the internets. I would never say something like that. But I can say that in certain situations, like this one, where you see our ruling leaders sitting there with no mask, I just showed you the footage, and then putting on a mask for the picture, and then taking the mask off, it makes you question, are you wearing this mask because of this super deadly virus that may kill you at any moment if you breathe any air around any other humans? Or were you putting the mask on for the picture? You'll have to make that determination for yourself, but that was the video that we just saw. And we're going to have to come up with some ideas about what is more important. What is more important to you? Is freedom more important to you, or is safety more important to you? And is safety a good goal? That's a question that you have to wrestle with. And here's a question that's going to be hard. Is safety even possible? Is being 100% safe possible in this life? Is it effective to make that your goal? Or will you end up, when I was a child, there was this story called The Bubble Boy. I don't know if any of you remember that. I probably am dating myself, but there was this idea, and the child was so worried about getting sick and perhaps susceptible to things that they just had to live in a bubble, and no one could see them and touch them or whatever. That doesn't sound like an amazing life to me, and it never did, and I always hated that idea. And it always made me sad for that child. And yet, this is the world that we have voluntarily put ourselves into by subscribing to things that are not necessarily based in actual science, but are based on officials telling us certain things. You're going to have to make your determination on how you live your life and whether you live it for freedom or whether you live it for safety, and what is the best goal for you. I don't care if you wear a mask. I don't care if you get a vaccine. It makes zero difference to me. That's how it should be, and that's how it should have been from the beginning of this. Now, when you start saying to me, I have to do everything according to keep you safe, I just don't think that's a tenable situation. Go back to the motorcycle riding. Riding a motorcycle is inherently and actually terribly dangerous. When I was talking to some of my motorcycle riding friends, they said the question is not if you fall on your motorcycle, it's when and how are you going to fall, and are you going to do that even safely, and are you going to do that in a way that you don't literally kill yourself. Driving a car, we talked about the other day, inherently dangerous. It is. My sweet, beautiful teenage daughter, when she drives a car, maybe even more dangerous. You all who have teenagers know this. Any of you who were teenagers, you know this. We all know that life is inherently dangerous, and we are not guaranteed anything. That is the Christian worldview, the beauty of the gospel in Jesus Christ, that we don't have to worry about these things. Jesus says, don't worry about tomorrow. Those things will take care of themselves. But what does he say? Does he say, lock yourself in your house, don't talk to any people, you might get a virus, you might die, you might get in a car crash, you might fall out of the sky in an airplane? No, he says, seek first the kingdom of God, and all things will be added. This is an important point that we need to remember. Our job is to seek God. Our job is to proclaim the good news. And in order to do that, again, in a lot of areas, we're going to have to go out and make disciples. Jesus says, again, Matthew 28, go out and make disciples. Don't sit around, wait for the world to be safe again, and then maybe venture out. He's not talking to pastors. He's not talking to the leaders of the church. I mean, he is. But the scope is not limited to this small group of people who are only charged with leading the church. He's talking to you. He's talking to every believer. You are supposed to go out and make disciples. And we're running into this conflict where if we're supposed to stay in, if we're not supposed to talk to people, if they can't even see our faces and see the joy that we have, and this is an important thing, not even medically, scientifically, whatever, we convey joy on our faces, and you know this to be true, and to mask us forever, which apparently is the goal, because I've seen no limiting principle on when we reach this mark, then you will be free again. I hear a lot of people online saying, well, we just do this for a minute or two, a month or two, for 15 days, for 6 months, for a year, for 15 months, for when is the end? What will signify the end of this when we can live our lives again? There is no end to that. And Fauci has even said, according to the flu standards, now we probably will have to mask for every flu season, for the whole flu season, which is like half of the year. But right now, we're in the summer and the end of the summer, and we're told we have to mask. So what is the limiting principle? Forever? This is mask forever, because the goal is getting to 0 cases of COVID, which of course is impossible. It's impossible to do that. The numbers, again, I read them the other day. I'm not going to go through them again. You can look them up at New York Times. You can look them up at CDC. The numbers of deaths are dramatically down. We're not in the same place that we were. And at some point, we have to decide, are we living again, or are we just doing this forever? And there are people who want you to just do this forever, because it's not about the virus. It's not about science. It's not even about health. It's about control. And we have to watch out for this, because this is important. I want to show you one more thing as we get to the end here, and this is Paris. And I want to show you Paris because I know it's not America. And again, sometimes we go out of America and we look at some of the other things that are going on around the world. But this is important because in California, New York, Washington, some other states and cities, we're seeing vaccine passports and vaccine mandates. I talked about that on a couple episodes ago, but we need to talk about it again because from a Christian worldview, this is a terrible idea. From a historical point of view, this is a terrible idea. I'm going to show you Paris in a second because this is important. Actually, I'll roll this clip now. I'll turn down the audio just a little bit on this. You can't really hear it anyway. There's some people speaking the French, and if you can't see this clip, this is police, armed police with guns, right? These aren't the social workers that some people are calling for. These are armed police with guns, bulletproof vests, walking around saying, show me, I'm gonna roll that again for you. Show me your papers. That's what they're saying. They're saying, show me your papers. So people show them the phone, they show them the handwritten papers, and they're walking around to a cafe outside. People just having their cafe au lait or whatever they're having, and they're just sitting outside, and the police are saying, show me that you were vaccinated in order to sit outside and drink a coffee. This is madness. And as I mentioned before, the reason from a biblical worldview this is madness is we are going to, if we go down this road, end up with a split society, a society that is segregated into the clean and unclean, the vaccinated and unvaccinated. And as the church, from the inside of the church perspective, as we just talked about the Great Commission, where Jesus says, go out and make disciples. What is the church going to do? Because this will come for the church. If you can't sit and drink a cup of coffee outside, how long will it take for them to say, well, you can't go inside a church without your papers? I mean, that would be incredibly dangerous because that's inside, much less outside. And I know this is Paris, but there are cities in America right now working on this same thing and this same technology. In California and LA, they're working on the app that you have to show it on your phone. I mean, this is happening. It is happening. And if we don't stand up and say, no, 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 like, one, historically, we did this already. We did this whole papers thing during some of the great world wars. It did not end well for the people that had to show the papers. I mean, I'm just telling you, go back and read some history about this. This is a bad idea, regardless whether it's about race, whether it's about status, whether it's about vaccines or not. This is a bad idea because what is the end result? How do you enforce this? What if somebody just wants a coffee? What if somebody just wants a cheeseburger? What if somebody wants to go to church and they don't have their paper? What if they lose their paper? What if their paper is not valid anymore? What if you have to get 1 booster, 3 boosters, 12 boosters, and you're not up to date? And it's not even talking about like poorer communities who can't afford to do certain things. And then what happens? How do you enforce this? At some point, you have to enforce this literally by force. You have to do this by force. So how are they going to enforce this? Do they lock people away? Do they put people in camps? Do they ship people off who either can't or won't get this thing that the government says they have to get? And then from a biblical perspective, how do you minister to 2 separate crowds that don't want to hang out together anymore? I talk about this so much, but I'll talk about Galatians, talk about Jesus' words. We are not supposed to separate ourselves as believers over and over again. I said this, I posted this the other day, that Jesus over and over again went to talk to, hang out with, and even touch the sick and the unclean, where the religious leaders, the people in the town would not go near these people. They put them off to the side. They put them outside the city gates. They put them in places where you couldn't see them, couldn't look at them, and didn't have to feel empathy for them. Jesus specifically went out, and I had this one comment come back that said, well, he was able to heal and he had the power of God and you don't. And I was like, wait. You clearly don't understand the power of Jesus. When Paul says the same power that is in you, that was in Jesus is in you, like that's a thing. And we may not see as many healings today, but that doesn't mean it's not possible. And we don't need to live in fear of God, and we don't need, or of this world, and we don't need to live in fear of death. We don't need to live in fear of death. If you really believe that Jesus is God, if you really believe that you're going to be face to face with him when you die, then why are you worried? What are you afraid of? Dying, again, Paul says, to live is Christ, to die is gain. He was under so much persecution and so much pain from government officials and from others who were trying to get rid of him. I mean, you can hear in his words, he wanted to go see Jesus face to face, but he said, as long as I'm here, I'm going to do the work that God has sent me to do. That is such a great perspective and how we should live. As long as I'm here, I'm going to do everything I can to do the work that God has called me to do. I'm going to fight for truth. I'm going to fight for freedom. And I'm going to tell people about how great it is to follow after Jesus. And the world, in all of its different ways, with all of its different people, is going to try to stop you from doing this. And we can't let the world do that. We have to stand up for truth. We have to stand up for the gospel. We have to show people grace. We have to show people love. Yes. But we have to fight for true things. If, as these elites are saying, and by their actions, again, this is do what I say, don't do what I do. If it was really that bad, if they were really that worried about it, they would do the right thing. They are clearly not doing the right thing over and over and over and over again. I could have spent a whole hour with just clips of these officials doing the wrong thing. I saw a photo of this. I saw a quick video of this elected official who was on the side of stage, standing there, no mask, put his mask on, walked onto the stage to the podium, and then took his mask off. And I'm just sitting there laughing, like, what? Do you like? What was the point of that? It's theater. It was just to show you that this is the right thing to do. This is acting like a religion. The religious rite and the religious ritual is follow what I say, and you will be in the religion. If you mask at the right time, you're in the religion. If you get the vaccination at the right time, you are in the religion. If you don't follow their religion, then you are out in the cold. However, and see, this is the interesting part where it acts more like a cult than an actual religion, right? If you are in the ruling class, if you preach what the good things are, we'll just use President Obama as an example. He says the right things. He preaches the right things. He tells you to do the right things. So he says the right things, and he is a great priest of this religion. So when he doesn't do the things he's supposed to do, it doesn't matter. He's fine because he says the right liturgy. And this is all about liturgy at this point. It's all about doing what I say, don't do what I do. That is not what the gospel is about. The gospel is about, as I read in James the other day, what do you mean? I'm going to paraphrase here for a second, but he just says, like, you need to not only hear the words, you need to do the words. It doesn't matter if you believe all the words, know all the words, even say all the words, but don't do them. Sorry, it's worth nothing to God. That's not me. That's not me saying that. That's the apostles, the disciples, Jesus himself saying that. It's not about what you say. It's about what you do. And yet this ruling class is, no, it's all about what you say. Don't look at what I do. See how these are opposite things? We need to stand for truth. We need to know the truth. And then we need to do the true things. This is really important for us as believers and as followers of God. I've gone longer than I wanted to, so thank you so much for listening, and hopefully this has been helpful to you. If you want to give it a like and subscribe, I really appreciate that. You can also check me out on the social medias. Again, God bless you as always, and I hope that you can keep the faith.